before we get into the issues of the campaign and
Yeah.
some of the things you're hearing about, tell us just about yourself as far as where you're from, family, education, work experience, political experience, that sort of thing.
Sure. So I was born on the High Line, and then I was raised in and around Great Falls in Cascade County. So just Montana girl, born and bred. My husband and I have been married 19 years. We have 3 teenagers that we home educate. So that has been the last dozen of my years, has been being a home educator, being a tutor, being involved in the community, things like 4-H, and different civic groups, our home church, and raising our kids.
Okay. And tell me why you decided to run for public office.
Oh, that's a long story. Long story short, it was brought to my attention with the redistricting that there was this new district 19, heart of the Electric City, right, downtown Great Falls, and I was asked to consider to run, and I said no. So I have too much on my plate. I'm a busy mom. I've got all these things, and I was asked, well, again, think about it. And I said, no, I'm good. This is not my world, not the avenue that I would like to be spending my time on. And I was asked to pray about it. And I said, yes, I can do that because I know the Lord will say no. And in fact, the Lord did not say no. After a time of prayer and going back and forth, I felt like this is the right calling, and all the doors opened up as far as my kids' education and some work things, and it just seemed like a very clear path to run, and it has been an incredible experience. It's been quite the year.
Okay. So as you are out on the campaign trail and meeting people in the district, what issue or issues do you feel are of the most importance as you head to the next legislative session?
Yeah, so the one that actually took me by surprise, given our demographic, was our public safety and a concern with illegal immigration and the open border and the correlation between the two and the uptick in crime that the residents of House District 19 are seeing and feeling. And that was not something I was expecting to hear on the doors as much as I am. So obviously, on the legislative level for the state, there's only so much we can do. We can't, that's so much out of our jurisdiction. But looking at how can we fund public safety here and make our residents feel like their streets are safe, because I'm hearing that a lot, that they're just more and more concerned on that. The next one I would say that I hear on the doors a lot is quality in our education and I think because that is the age graphic of my children. I have kids in school, or school-age children, as it were, that's something that gets brought up, because that is something that I am very passionate about, making sure that we're doing right by our students, making sure that we're doing right by that next generation, that when they're graduated, they're ready to take on whatever those next steps may be. So whether that's trade school, college, going right into the workforce, that we're doing right by them so that we are continuing to grow our state and the next generation. Those, I think, definitely are the two that I hear the most. And then the other one would be just the economy in general, and inflation, and the price to fill our gas tank, and the price to fill fridges, and with that, the housing, and being able to afford more, maybe the first home or the next home, and that just not being an option for the residents of House District 19 right now.
Okay. I know that a lot of Montanans are concerned about property taxes, and do you have any thoughts or ideas on providing property tax relief while still maintaining enough money for some of those essential services like you talked about, public safety? Public safety.
Well, and I mean, it's such a buzzword right now, right? Property tax, but it's really a complicated issue. There are so many sides to it, and one of them is what the voters themselves are choosing to vote in with their levies that are going towards their property taxes. And that is an issue that needs to go right to the voters, right? The electorate is the one that's deciding what they're adding to their property taxes. There are some interesting things coming up, like the homestead exemption that the next legislature is going to look at. We don't have a sales tax in the state of Montana. People don't want it. They've been very clear about that. So we don't have that three-legged stool to stand on for taxes, which means with two, it's more like riding a bike. So it's a lot more complicated, because that stopping and starting, you can mess things up really quick. So that's something to be very considerate with, so we can continue funding our essential services. but looking at relief for individual tax, property tax owners, and how we balance those two is quite complicated.
Okay. And how would you prioritize allocating money when the state has a budget surplus?
Back to the taxpayers, for sure. That I love that we are debt-free. You know, debt-free in 23. That was the goal of the last legislative session. That money is not state money. It's taxpayer money. It came from the taxpayers, and it should go back to the taxpayers.
Okay. What would you do to improve bipartisanship to make sure both parties work together?
I think it's really important to remember that we're all people, right? And as someone who's faith-based, I believe that all people are created in the image of God. And when we forget about that, no matter what, whether it's blue or red, where you were born, in state, out of state, whether it's the color of your skin, when we get away from that, we start looking at people as less than for whatever reason, we start devaluing our humanity, and that's heartbreaking. And we can get into that so much in the polarizing of the current political climate. So I think a big part of it is just continuing to remember that we're people too, right? The people on the other side of the aisle, they value their community, they value their homes, they value their families the same way that I do. We just see the problems differently, so we see the solutions differently. And remembering to treat people with respect and integrity and as another human being goes a long way towards becoming friends on some level, even if you can disagree on policy.
Excellent. Anything else that you'd like to add about the campaign?
Gosh, like I said to begin with, I had never envisioned doing this. It's not what I feel is necessarily in my plan for the future, or even skill set as far as being an introvert and doing things like this with you or going door to door. But I have been so richly blessed by the people that I'm meeting. I've spent so many hours knocking doors and listening to people's hearts and their stories and their concerns, but also their joys. And being available to do that has just been such an incredible experience. And I just hope to continue that in some way throughout the course of this next year, and continuing to be a resource for our community. And thank you for doing this and taking your time today, and I appreciate it.
Awesome, thank you. I think that's all I have.